Morning television is supposed to be light, warm, and welcoming. A place where celebrity guests laugh, sip tea, and share anecdotes about their lives. But what happens when a global star walks in radiating untamed, ocean-level energy and an aversion to anything scripted? That's exactly what unfolded the morning Jason Momoa sat across from Allison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary on This Morning. What was supposed to be a polished promotional appearance quickly spiraled into one of the most chaotic, yet captivating confrontations in daytime television history. Momoa's buoyant freedom, Dermot's growing frustration, and Allison's desperate attempts to keep the production schedule afloat turned a routine interview into an unforgettable showdown that ended with Momoa laughing and walking off set. The This Morning studio had its usual buzz of energy as the cameras rolled. Allison Hammond greeted viewers with her signature cheerfulness, flashing that famous smile. Dermot O'Leary adjusted his notes, his calm, professional tone setting the stage. "Good morning, everyone. Today we have a very special guest joining us," Allison announced, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "He's someone you all know, a true force of nature known for saving the world on screen and protecting the oceans off-screen. Please welcome the one and only Jason Momoa." The audience roared with applause and cheers as Momoa bounded onto the set. Dressed in well-worn denim, thick biker boots, and an open, faded black t-shirt, he gave the crowd a massive wave. He didn't just walk, he hugged Allison first, a bone-crushing, slightly too long hug, then clapped Dermot heartily on the shoulder, nearly knocking him off balance. His expression was pure, unadulterated joy, but his energy level was already maxing out the tiny studio. Allison leaned forward warmly. "Jason, it's lovely to have you here with us today. How are you feeling this morning?" Momoa let out a powerful, roaring laugh, settling down, not quite in his chair, but sort of perched on the back cushion. "Aloha, Allison. I'm feeling like I need to be outside, barefoot, feeling that good London rain. Being indoors is fine, I suppose, but you gotta feel the life, you know? I'm here, I'm pumped. I'm ready to talk about the things that matter, not the boring stuff." The audience laughed, less awkwardly than enthusiastically. Allison's smile was genuine, but visibly strained as she tried to pull him back to the script. "Oh, we are excited to chat with you. We know you're here promoting your new action epic, Aquarius Prime. Tell us, how was filming in Iceland? Settling back in with Lisa and the kids after such an intense shoot?" Momoa's reply came quickly, full of tangents and raw enthusiasm. "Iceland is wild, Dermot. You gotta feel that cold water. I was there learning how to carve wood with this beautiful old master. And then bam, back into the green screen. You know, it's fine. At least on the ocean, the work is real. Not like here," he added, glancing at Dermot, "where everything is perfectly lit and no one has had a proper breakfast yet." Dermot raised his brows but kept his voice calm. "We're here to talk about Aquarius Prime, Jason. Just giving our viewers a chance to hear about the massive amount of work you put into it. Surely that's something you value considering how often you champion the craft of filmmaking." Momoa winked. "Yeah, well, the craft is important, Dermot. But the difference is, on set, I get to use a proper axe. Today, apparently, I have to whisper about a movie when I want to scream about the oceans dying. I didn't have that luxury." The tension in the studio sharpened, though Allison jumped in quickly to smooth things over. "Oh, come now, Jason. We're delighted you're here. Everyone watching at home wants to hear about the movie, your environmental projects, and of course, your family. How are Lola and Nakoa Wolf doing?" Momoa sighed dramatically, picking up a decorative pineapple from the coffee table and turning it over in his massive hands. "They're fine, Allison. Perfect, in fact. But every time someone asks me about my children on live television, I wonder, are you genuinely interested or are you just trying to connect me to a safe, soft narrative? Because if it's the latter, I'll save us all the trouble and say they're wonderful. Now look at this pineapple. It's all plastic. Why don't we talk about plastic in the ocean instead?" The audience stirred, the tension palpable, half amused, half shocked. Allison gave a nervous laugh. "Well, we are genuinely interested, Jason. You're a father, and many of our viewers are parents too. It's a connection point." But Momoa cut her off. "A connection point? Allison, you don't know me. You don't know what it's like to live a real, raw life and then have to pretend it fits into this tiny little box. He gestured wildly at the screen. So forgive me if I don't see this as a cozy little chat. Dermot shifted in his chair, his calm demeanor starting to fray at the edges. He leaned forward, his voice firmer now. Jason, with all due respect, you did agree to be here. And when public figures come on this morning, the idea is to have a structured conversation. That's not about being fake. It's about respecting the medium and the millions of viewers who want clear answers. Momoa's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing slightly. Clear answers? Don't lecture me about clear answers, Dermot. I live clearly every single day while the industry twists everything I say and do into some nice, clean, sellable package. If anything, this is just another performative display. I'm the wild man, and you're the handlers making sure I smile and talk about the superhero toys. Gasps rippled through the audience. Allison's eyes darted to Dermot, silently pleading with him to keep things under control. Dermot inhaled slowly, visibly restraining himself. Jason, Allison said gently, we just want to understand your passion. People admire you for speaking out, for championing the environment. Surely talking about that is a good thing. Momoa crossed his arms, his tone dropping from enthusiastic to deeply serious. Or maybe it's just good for your ratings. Let's not pretend this is about understanding me. This is about you, your program, and the spectacle of having a man who refuses to wear a suit and talk about the weather. The air in the studio felt heavier now, as if the lights themselves had dimmed with the growing hostility. Dermot's smile had vanished entirely, his patience tested, but not yet broken. Allison, still trying to hold the fragile balance, cleared her throat. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue our conversation with Jason Momoa. The camera cut to commercial, but the tension lingered like static in the air. What had begun as a simple morning show chat was already veering off course, and the most unpredictable was still to come. When the cameras returned from the break, Allison Hammond's smile was brighter than ever, though it seemed stretched thin with effort. Dermot O'Leary adjusted his posture, leaning slightly forward at the desk, his expression calm but clipped. Between them, Jason Momoa sat with one leg casually draped over the arm of the sofa, arms spread wide along the backrest, radiating an air of untamed boredom. And Allison jumped in quickly, trying to reset the tone. Welcome back to This Morning. We're joined today by Jason Momoa talking about life, family, and his new projects. Her laugh was cheerful but carried a nervous undertone. Jason, let's dive into your latest work with protecting coral reefs. You've been involved with some incredible ocean cleanup organizations, right? Momoa gave a slow, deliberate nod, then suddenly threw the plastic pineapple he was holding back onto the table. Yeah, though I imagine the specifics of sustainable energy aren't of much interest to your viewers. People here prefer the fluff, don't they? The pretty pictures, the safe version of the truth. Allison blinked, thrown off balance. Well, I think our viewers are genuinely curious about the positive work you're doing. Momoa smirked, leaning back fully. Curious perhaps, but not committed. Let's face it, saving the planet doesn't make headlines unless I'm doing it topless. My lifestyle does, my hair does. That's why I'm sitting here, isn't it? To be the circus attraction. The audience murmured, some nervously laughing. Dermot's face tightened, but he kept his voice steady. Jason, to be fair, many people are interested in the work you do. We just try to give a balance. Talk about your projects, but also about the things the public wants to know. That's the nature of live television. Momoa scoffed. Balance? No, Dermot. Balance would mean giving me an hour to talk about microplastics, not trying to fit a tidal wave into a tiny teacup. You want me to be a neat, clean celebrity. I'm not neat, and I'm definitely not clean. Dermot inhaled slowly, his patience clearly wearing thinner. I don't think asking about your family is trying to clean you up, Jason. It's something viewers relate to. You've often spoken about wanting to be a good father. That's something people admire. Momoa's laugh was sharp and humorless. Admire or stylize. Every word I say about my kids is carefully curated by my team so it doesn't offend this delicate audience. And now here you are playing the same game. Enough with the nice dad questions. Allison interjected, her voice softer. Jason, I think Dermot means it in a positive light. People love hearing about your life. Momoa's lips pressed into a thin smile, but the frustration in his tone was unmistakable. My life is fine, Allison. Thriving, despite the constant pressure to be smaller, quieter, and less me. But thank you for asking again. The tension was growing unbearable. Dermot straightened his notes, his jaw tightening before he spoke again. Let's pivot a little, Jason, Dermot said, his tone professional but firm. There's been a lot of talk about your contract negotiations for the new sequel, specifically the reports of your financial demands impacting the production schedule. Can you tell us more about that? Momoa's eyes narrowed, his expression icy. Ah, there it is, the money question. Predictable. Dermot raised his brows. It's not meant to provoke, Jason. These are public reports. People are curious if there's truth to them. Momoa leaned forward now, his voice sharp, dripping with disdain. People are curious because the press feeds them sensationalism. And programs like this keep serving it up on a silver platter. You call it journalism, I call it cheap drama. Gasps fluttered through the audience. Allison visibly tensed, her hands gripping the table as she tried to smooth over the friction. Jason, I don't think Dermot meant it like that. He's just asking the questions on people's minds. But Momoa wasn't done. And maybe people's minds are too focused on my paycheck when we should be focused on the fact that the studio that pays me is actively dumping waste near our coastlines. Last time I checked, I wasn't the only person in the world trying to negotiate a fair paycheck while fighting against corporate greed. The audience's unease turned into scattered applause, but the atmosphere remained heavy. Dermot's patience was wearing thinner by the second. He forced a polite smile. Fair enough, Jason, but you've spoken often about rejecting the commercial machinery of Hollywood. Doesn't taking multi-million-dollar deals while criticizing the industry look contradictory to some people? That was the spark. Momoa's eyes flashed. Contradictory? You mean using their money to fund my environmental documentaries? You mean making a life outside of the manufactured machine that tries to clip my wings every single day? And forgive me if I don't apologize for using their structure to fund my freedom. Allison quickly leaned in. Jason, no one's denying your commitment. Dermot is just saying... Momoa cut her off, his voice rising. No, Allison. Dermot is insinuating that I'm a hypocrite, that I wanted out, but I also wanted the resources to make a difference. Newsflash, that's called strategic action. It's called refusing to be controlled by empty contracts. Dermot's jaw clenched. His calm facade was beginning to crack. He exhaled sharply before speaking. Jason, I'm not insinuating anything, but people are watching you complain about the manufactured machine while being one of the highest paid parts of it. That's where the questions come from. Momoa leaned in closer, his face set in stone. Being a part of it? Do you think being a star is privilege when it means you can't walk down the street without a camera in your face? Do you think privilege is having your private life scrutinized for every headline? Keep your lecture about privilege, Dermot. You haven't lived mine. The studio fell silent. The audience held its breath. Allison, eyes wide, reached out as though to place a calming hand between them. All right, let's all take a moment. This is getting a bit heated. Let's not forget we're live. But Dermot's composure was cracking, his voice low but tight. I respect your passion, Jason, I really do. But there's a difference between sharing your truth and sneering at anyone who dares to ask a practical question. This isn't a soapbox, it's a television interview. Momoa's lips curved into a massive cold smirk, his voice cold. And maybe that's the problem, Dermot. Too much television. Too many people like you pretending to care while forcing a vibrant life into a beige script. Congratulations. You've got your drama. The tension was now suffocating. Allison forced a strange smile at the cameras. We'll be right back after the break. But as the screen faded to commercial, the studio buzzed with the realization that this was no longer a friendly chat. It was a clash of cultures, and they had only just hit the halfway point. When the cameras came back from commercial, Allison Hamina's laugh rang out a little too loudly. She turned toward the camera, her smile wide but brittle. Welcome back to This Morning. We're still here with Jason Momoa talking about his life, his passion, in his upcoming projects. Beside her, Dermot O'Leary sat motionless, his notes stacked neatly in front of him. His expression was professional, but the tight line of his jaw betrayed the storm brewing beneath. Momoa, on the other hand, looked utterly unbothered. He was now sitting cross-legged on the sofa, arms folded loosely across his chest, exuding an air of amused defiance. Allison tried again to lighten the mood. "Jason, let's pivot a little bit. You've spoken so often about the importance of family in your relationship with Lisa Bonet. Do you feel your platform has helped bring awareness to the importance of co-parenting and mutual respect?" Momoa didn't even look at her at first. He was staring at the lights above. Then, finally, he turned his head with a faint, theatrical sigh. "Awareness, sure, though I doubt your viewers need me to remind them that you gotta love your kids and respect the mother of your kids. It's common sense, Allison. Maybe you should ask me something less obvious. Like why the studio lights use so much power." The audience gasped softly. Allison's smile froze, but she pushed on, her voice a shade tighter. "I think what people want to know is how you personally have used your voice to navigate public changes. That's important." Momoa shrugged. "I've said what I needed to say. If people haven't heard it by now, they're not listening. Maybe it's not my job to spoon-feed truths that the world should already understand. My job is to act, surf, and protect the ANA." Dermot shifted in his chair, finally speaking. "With respect, Jason, raising awareness is a continuous job. It doesn't end after one interview or one speech. That's why people are curious about your ongoing role." Momoa tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. "Curious or just nosy? Let's be honest. Most of the time, these questions aren't about solutions. They're about keeping me predictable. And frankly, I'm tired of it." The atmosphere thickened again. Dermot, however, was growing less patient. He leaned slightly forward, voice measured but pointed. "All right, let's address something more specific then," Dermot said, his gaze steady. "There's been a lot of public chatter about your recent move to a smaller, off-grid property. Many people wonder if you're truly dedicated to acting or if this is just a phase of stepping back. Do you see Hollywood happening in the future?" Momoa's smirk vanished, replaced by a deep frown. "Chatter, chatter, chatter. That's all people ever want. I live my life, I make my art, and frankly, I don't owe anyone an update on my living arrangements or my career plan." Dermot nodded calmly. "But you've chosen to speak publicly about rejecting the Hollywood machine before, so it's natural that people ask where things stand now." Momoa's voice sharpened. "Natural? No, Dermot. Manufactured. People want the narrative, not the truth. The truth is Hollywood is different from me. End of story." The audience stirred again. Allison interjected quickly. "But Jason, don't you think people root for your success?" Momoa cut her off, his tone icy. "People root for what makes them comfortable, not what's real. If they want safe careers, they can watch a sitcom. This is my life, not their gentle Sunday viewing." The air crackled with tension. Dermot's patience was slipping further. He glanced briefly at Allison, then leaned forward again. "Fair enough. But when you participate in multi-million-dollar franchises and come on television shows like this, surely you understand why people follow up on your commitment." Momoa gave a short, bitter laugh. "Of course you'd spin it that way. Always the same logic. I stand up for my beliefs and suddenly I'm accused of being unreliable. Yet the studios churn out formulaic garbage daily and nobody calls them out. Conformity at its finest." Allison's smile was slipping now, her voice quieter. "Jason, I think Dermot just means..." Momoa cut her off again. "I know exactly what Dermot means. And maybe he should admit what he's really saying. That it's fine for the studios to control the narrative, but not fine for me to live my truth in a way that makes them uncomfortable." The audience buzzed with unease. Dermot's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm, though there was steel beneath it now. "Jason, what I'm saying is simple. When you ask the world to pay attention, the world is also going to ask relevant questions. That's not persecution. That's accountability." Momoa leaned forward suddenly, his voice sharp as a blade. "Accountability for whom? For me? What about accountability for the industries that silence environmental activists? For the institutions that chew up artists and try to turn them into predictable robots, where's their accountability? The words hung heavy in the studio, the silence deafening. Allison placed a gentle hand on Dermot's arm, trying to calm the tension. All right, let's move on. But Dermot's calm mask was cracking. He exhaled slowly, his voice lower. We can move on, Allison, but let's not ignore what's happening here. Every time I ask a question, Jason, you deflect, criticize, or dismiss the entire format. This isn't a documentary, it's an interview. You came here by choice. Momoa's smirk returned, shide and cutting. A choice? My choice? Hardly. These interviews are just part of the machine you claim to reject. And you, Dermot, are one of the cogs making sure it turns smoothly. That was it. The spark lit the fuse. Dermot leaned forward, his tone still even but no longer patient. I've interviewed powerful activists, complicated artists, and people under immense pressure. And never once have I been treated with the level of disregard for the process you've shown today. It's not passion, Jason, it's inconsiderate. The audience gasped. Allison jumped in quickly, her voice higher, more frantic. Okay, let's just take a breath. We don't want this to get out of hand. But Momoa only laughed wider, as though finally enjoying the spectacle. Inconsiderate, Dermot? Or perhaps just real? I don't pretend to be someone I'm not for people who don't deserve the pretense. Dermot's eyes locked on Momoa's, the tension now palpable. And there it is again. The dismissal. Maybe the problem isn't the studios or the media or the questions. Maybe the problem, Jason, is that you don't respect the work other people do. The words hit the studio like a thunderclap. Allison's face went pale. The audience audibly gasped, and Momoa froze for a fraction of a second before his jaw dropped, not in fury but in mock shock. Whoa, man, that's a low blow, Momoa exclaimed, throwing his hands up. For a moment, the three sat in utter silence. Dermot was breathing heavily, his point made. You want honesty? Fine, I'm done being a good sport. This is too tight, too small, and honestly, way too quiet for me. He shot to his feet, not violently, but with quick, animalistic energy. I'm going to find some actual sunlight and talk about things that matter. Mahalo nui loa, Dermot, for trying to put me in your little box. Dermot, unflinching, turned to the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize. This is not the conversation we intended to have this morning. We respect our guests, but we also respect our viewers and our format, and I cannot in good conscience continue this interview. Momoa stood there, grinning wide, but the realization of being dismissed was clear. You're kicking me out, bro, Momoa demanded, his voice incredulous and slightly amused. Dermot met his eyes, steady and unyielding. Yes, Jason, this is this morning, not a beach bonfire. It's time you left. The audience gasped again. Allison covered her mouth in shock, shaking her head. Momoa grabbed his denim jacket from the back of the sofa, throwing it over his shoulder, muttering under his breath, Unbelievable. This whole thing is plastic. With that, he let out one last loud, Aloha! And bounded off the set, his heavy boots echoing in the stunned silence. Allison, still wide-eyed, turned back to the camera. I'm so sorry you had to witness that. That's not what this show is about. We try to bring light and joy into people's mornings, and I think we can all agree that wasn't it. Dermot exhaled deeply, his face pale but resolute. We'll be right back after the break. The screen faded to the This Morning logo as the audience erupted into shocked chatter. The footage, destined to become one of the most unpredictable, loud, and viral moments in British daytime television history. Jason Momoa had come to promote a safe project. Instead, he had rejected the safety of morning TV live on air. What did you think of this confrontation? Was Dermot right to stand up for the integrity of the show, or was Jason Momoa simply too real for morning television? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts.